So let's like a little start then. As I say, we'll go through some slides and then we'll go into looking at Sage 200 and some of the new features that have been added in the programme. Alrighty, so as I say, we're going to look at the new features for Sage 200 Professional this afternoon. But before we do, as I say, we've got a mixture of different customers on the call this afternoon. Some who are maybe on an older version of the software, some who have just recently upgraded, or some who are maybe in the process of upgrading. So a good mix of people that are on the call this afternoon. Before we even start looking at any of the kind of new feature, what are maybe the reasons that we should look to upgrade Sage 200 Professional to one of the later versions? Probably the main reason before we even look at any features in the software is that it's going to be fully supported by Sage. So Sage have a kind of life cycle that they go through with their versions of the software, and it means that the most recent versions of the software are obviously the ones that are fully supported. You then get those that are maybe a bit back, for example, their Sage 200 2022 R1 and R2 that go into extended support, and then you've got the ones prior to that that are actually now out of support. Now, what does that actually mean in practice when we say that that's out of support? Us at Eureka Solutions will continue to support the software no matter what version that you're on. So you could be on, say, 2020, 2019. We will continue to support the version of the software that you're on. Where the kind of complication comes is if there are some issues with our support team where we need to send the data to Sage, or we need Sage's assistance and maybe a kind of deep-rooted issue, they will only support the versions of the software that you can see on the screen, or the currently supported versions, and in some instances the extended Sage support versions. So it just gives you that peace of mind that whatever happens with the software, and touch wood, we would never need to go to Sage, and most of the issues that come up day to day, our support team are able to solve. And from working on the support team, I know that to be true. But there is, of course, some occasions where we do need to go to Sage and ask for their support and have them look at it. Maybe an underlying issue in the software, an underlying issue in some of the data that we need to go and speak to Sage about. So they will only get involved if it's on a supported version of the software. So by upgrading and making sure you are fully up to date with the upgrade, it just means that you've got that peace of mind that you are fully supported no matter what happens to the software. There's always going to be somewhere to go. Now, of course, we're always here for support no matter what version you're on. But again, it's about that peace of mind and knowing that that additional support from Sage is always there as well. So really, really worthwhile looking at upgrading if you are on one of the maybe older versions of the software. I think most of the people on the call today are on what's one of the newer versions due to the TLS changes that happened a couple of years back. But it's actually quite staggering that we're into 2024 and seeing some of the versions that are now not supported. So it's just always good to keep up to date. And if you do have any kind of questions around the support and how the support from Sage and how that all works, please do not hesitate to ask your account manager, myself, Stephen, or Lana. We'll be more than happy to go through some of the instances and why you should maybe look to upgrade if you're on one of those kind of older versions of the software. So that's probably the main reason for upgrading out with any of the new features. But there are also other benefits of upgrading the software. So access to the latest new features, and we'll have a look at some of those today. There might be some in there that you find really, really useful. You might not use any of them, but you always get access to these new features that Sage put into the solution. Now, these new features that we'll look at today are all based off of customer feedback. So it's ones that Sage 200 customers have actually asked for over the last years, and it's mainly the most requested features that then get added into the next release of the software. So I think there's maybe one on the call this afternoon one feature in particular, and will help them. So it's all based on Sage 200 customer feedback. You'll find that maybe if you've taken some from some add-on functionality that's maybe in one of our packs or other ISV packs, that's then been added into the full version of the software. So all based on customer feedback. access to the latest bug fixes. Sometimes there are just unfortunately some bugs within the software that need to be fixed, and they'll only be fixed in supported versions of the software. If a bug is found in an area of the software, that'll only be fixed in the supported versions of the software. So it means you're always getting access to the latest bug fixes that are applied to Sage 200. So again, another good reason to maybe look at upgrading the software. Thankfully, there's not too many bugs at all, but if there are any kind of bug fixes that are released, they will be released on the supported version of the software. And it's fully compatible with Sage 200 additional modules and add-ons from Eureka, Tracer and Cycon. So not just our own, but Tracer and Cycon, who I know there's people on the call today that are using some of those additions that by moving to the latest version of the software, you're pretty much guaranteed that their software and our software will all work and has been tested on that. You might find that sometimes when you go to buy maybe an additional Sage module, we might not be able to process that if you're on one of the older versions of the software. So you're just guaranteed that all the add-on software will work if you're on one of the supported versions of the Sage 200 software. And just kind of going on to that, just building on from that, all of our add-ons. So I know there's quite a lot of people on the call today who maybe make use of our Plus Pack or Basincly or the Sales Order and Purchase Order Plus Pack. All of those have been fully supported, of course, and have been fully tested through by our developers to make sure that they work with the latest version of the software. Again, there's maybe some issues with some of the older versions of the software, so they've all been tested, all thoroughly tested, and they all work with the latest version. So no issue there if you're looking to upgrade. And as I say, that's the same for Tracer and Cycon if you've got any of those additional modules. Okay, so as I said, just a quick, you'll be having a quick brief slides just to kind of set the scene this afternoon. Without further ado, we'll go over and look at some of Sage 200. So you should be able to see Sage 200 on the screen now. So we'll look at some of the new features, as I say, from the latest release, which is 2024 R1. We'll also probably recap some of the main new features out of maybe some of the last versions like 2023 R2, 2023 R1, probably more so because there's a bit more features added in there. And then to round off, we'll probably look at a wee bit on the web portal for Sage 200. Now, the web portal has been heavily added to over the last probably 2 to 3, maybe even 4 years. And when a new release of the software is brought out to the table, more often than not, there's a few enhancements to the web portal. So it might be something that some people on the call have not seen before, so it might be a good to even just see it for the first time. So we'll look at some of the new features that have been put into the desktop software, which you can see in front of you, and then we will have a look at the web portal, which has had some features added to it. So starting with the latest features in 2024 R1, there's not loads of them. As I say, the main thing the main reason to upgrade is that support. But there has been some new features added, and the first one actually comes within purchase order processing. I know we've got a few people on the call today who use purchase orders quite heavily. So I'll just go into our purchase order list, and as you can see here, it just looks kind of the same. No real changes to the purchase order list. Now, before we even get to the purchase order list, to actually set the scene of this new feature, we're actually going to go and look at the sales order list to begin with. Now, when you're looking at sales orders, you can see the list view here that, as you can see in front of you, is a bit more full than it is in purchase orders. Now, the reason for that is you've got the ability with sales orders, and we've always had the ability with sales orders to kind of track where orders are at. So you've got this ready for allocation, allocated, ready for dispatch, and it really means you can get a quick view of where your sales orders are. Good thing about these columns are as well, you can always add them into your filters. So if you're wanting to filter, we could create a filter for just allocated or just ones ready for dispatch. So it really gives you a bit more visibility just from the list without having to run any reports. Now, what a lot of customers have asked for over the years, and we've had this question before, is can we do the same on the purchase order side, where originally all you would have is a status column where it would just say if it's live or it's been completed. You wouldn't actually know if anything's been received or if it's been invoiced. But Sage have now addressed that issue. Now, for us, when people used to ask for this to be added, it's quite a big job because we need to make changes to the list view, notoriously quite a difficult job. But now Sage have added in new columns to this list that are available. So if we look at our columns, we can now see we've got these invoiced. I've probably done this the wrong way around, but I'll fix that in a little second. We've also got, so just for anyone that doesn't know, if you just right click on the columns, you can add and take away any columns that you like that are available to you in the list. We've got disputed, and we have also got probably one of the best ones, or my personal favourite, the received. And you can obviously change the way these columns look or where they reside just by dragging and dropping. So this gives, from a purchase order standpoint, it gives you a really good idea of where your purchase orders are sitting without having to go in and run any reports or go into any extra inquiry screens. It really just gives you that holistic view of where your purchase orders are at in that one list view. Again, the good thing about this is you can start to manage your purchase orders using filters. So if you wanted to just filter to see, I only want to see orders that have been invoiced, or I want to see orders that have not been invoiced, you can do that using the filters. I won't go into making some filters today, but if you do need any help around that or any information around that, of course, please just reach out to our support team. I'm more than happy to help. Should have said at the beginning, if there are any questions that come up through today's webinar, please use the chat facility. My colleague Nathan is kindly on hand to look at those, and he will raise them at the end of the session today, where I will try and answer as many as I can. Don't know the answer, I'll certainly get it for you. Okay, so that's probably the first new feature that's been added. Really, really good new feature, one that's been asked of us as a developer many times. Seems quite a simple one to add, but it's been one that's been cried out for. As I say, everything is added due to customer feedback, especially if you're putting a lot of purchase orders on, and I know we've got a few on the call today who certainly do that. This is going to be a good way that you can actually just see what's going on with different purchase orders and being able to slice and dice a wee bit more without having to run any reports at all. So just gives you a bit more scope for amending the list view. All righty. So sticking on the supplier theme, if I just pop into our purchase ledger. Now this is going back to a couple of versions ago. I think it was 2023 R1 that this was brought in. If we just look and amend this account, another good feature that's been added, and I think there's someone on the call today who has asked for this many times, is this alert function. Now, going back to just what I spoke about before, this is available for customers and has been for a little while now, where you can actually put an alert about that particular customer. But now it's been added to the supplier side just to give some extra information for people who are maybe putting on purchase orders. So it gives you that, so it gives an alert. So if I just look at this, I added one actually just today where we have said supplier has had delivery issues or issues with delivery. We can make as many as we need in here, and what we can actually do is say where this is going to show, so I can see which forms that this message is going to be displayed on. So for example, when I enter and amend a purchase order with this supplier, this message will show, just to give the order taker or the person that's putting on the order in Sage 200 a bit of extra context. Now, it might be that the supplier has issues with delivery. There might be some issues going on with the supplier around payments, is a common one, but it just gives that alert so that someone knows. As I say, we've got I think one or two on the call today who would heavily probably use this feature. So a really nice one that Sage have added. Just to kind of illustrate that in a bit more detail, if I pop back in and look at our purchase orders, I'll just quickly raise a purchase order, just going through the new order. And I'll use BGT distribution, and you can see straight away that the alert is popped on to the screen straight away before you can actually add any lines or copy any orders or do anything with the purchase order at all. The supplier alert comes through, just similar to what you would get on the customer side. And you can see there it's date stamped, which is really good because you can see if that's a recent update, and if you go and ask any questions, you can certainly do so. So it's good that it has date stamped, so you know it's a recent update and it's something that has to be actioned or something that has to be considered. All the righty. So if we just come out of there, and we'll just not save that order, we don't need to go through the order process. what we can actually do. And what just going back a step, if we just pop back into a purchase order list, while we were in that order, I can actually just pop into this order, just illustrate this list view again. If I come into, let's just take 3279, we can show quantities and we can see that nothing yet has been received. So I'll just come out of there, and if I can do that. And what we'll do is I'll actually just confirm some goods received for this order. So if I just go to confirm goods received and just put in a reference, I'll just pop in the webinar. We're doing it today. And then we'll just come down, just use our tab key, just receive 10 of those, and we will save that off. We'll just wait for that to come through. And that's us all sorted. And then if we do a refresh, which I'm hoping won't take too long, let's just auto refresh that. We can see there that has been fully received. So that's just to illustrate exactly what would happen when you're receiving, invoicing, even putting in any orders into dispute. So just to come back to that list view, while we're in the purchase order, it just shows you how it will update the list view and give you that holistic look at your purchase order progress just by using a list rather than running any kind of reports out the system. Okay. So those are the kind of new features within the purchase ledger. There was also some additions to our stock control module over the last few versions of H200, particularly in importing and exporting around about locations. So if we pop into our stock control module here on the left-hand side and pop into our utilities, you can see here we've got some extra. Now if you go into your stock control module, you probably wouldn't have these unless you are on one of the kind of newer versions or have a test version of one of the new versions of H200. But you can see here we've got some new, if I just pull this out just to make it a little bit bigger, you can see here we've got some new imports and exports. So we've got add locations to stock records. Really good if you add a new location to Sage 200 and you want to quickly add those to your stock items without having to go through each individual one. We've got import stock record locations. So if I just open this up, you can see this is used to add or update the warehousing stock and levels for individual stock records. So again, saving you having to go into the item, amend the item, go to your locations and do the updates from within there. You can do that en masse. Again, you can export this out so it's all in the right format and then update accordingly. Now the file formats for all these imports are available online. So if I just use our show help button, which is always a lifesaver for me at some points, you can easily get the CSV file and you can actually see an example file as well. So there's quite a lot of information through the product help. Of course, if you've got any questions around the import format or anything to do with the new imports for stock locations and stock levels, please just let us know. Our support team and your account manager will be more than happy to run through that with you. So a few new imports and exports. As with every import and export out of Sage 200's front end, you've got the option to validate before you do anything. So that's really good when you are going to maybe make a change. Obviously, we can maybe do this in the test company if you've got an up-to-date test company. But there is the validate stock record location. So it just means that everything's going to be validated. You can see what's going to happen, and then you can then go and validate and then import the stock record locations in. And again, that's the same for the other new import for adding locations as well. You also get the option to update an existing warehouse if you wanted to do that as well. So again, that came in 2023 R1. So again, there might be some on the call today who are on that version of the software. But again, that came in 2023 R1. So just recapping some of those that we've looked at before. Alrighty, so that is just a quick roundup of some of the new features within the front end of the software. But as promised, what we'll do is actually have a look at the new web portal for Sage 200 that has been added in. So easy way to get there is just simply by going to our tools, and I'll just say I want to show the web portal in the browser. So a bit different from workspaces. So there might be someone who have used workspaces and you can access these online, but this is Sage 200 new kind of web portal. So what actually is this? Because there might be someone on the call today that haven't really seen the web portal or even used the web portal before. So this is Sage's effort to try and make the system a bit more accessible for people out with using Sage 200 desktop version of the software. So good thing about this is you can access this using a connected or web user license, which is a bit less expensive than the full user license for Sage 200. Now you can't do everything that you can do on the desktop version of the software, but you can do a lot more than you used to be able to in the Sage 200 web portal. So trying to illustrate some of that just now. And you can see some of these new features that we've actually looked at today coming across in the Sage 200 web portal. So in terms of getting this set up, we would probably need to speak to your IT just about getting ports opened up and different things, just to make sure that the data is externally available, and so people can see the data out with the desktop. But that's something we can certainly talk to you about with your IT and some of our technical consultants. So welcome to the Sage 200 web portal. So as I say, similar to what you've got in Sage 200, the desktop version of the software, but allowing you that access from basically anywhere. So you can see here we've got the different modules, just similar to what we've got in Sage 200. We've got access to our sales ledger, got access to the purchase ledger, access to nominal ledger, and we've got the cash book, stock control, sales orders, and purchase orders. Now, as I say, there's some modules that are missing here. So, for example, bill of materials, project accounting, if you've got those modules, and obviously your add-on modules such as Psych or Dracer aren't yet within the web portal. But what this allows you to do, as allows users to do, is just access the software out with the desktop. So really good if you've got people maybe on the road. So we'll have a wee look at an example of that. So if you've got salespeople on the road, or you're going to visit customers as maybe an account manager, or you're maybe just out and about, you're a director, you've not got full access to the system, you just want to get quick access to see what's going on, say with a customer in your sales ledger, a supplier in the purchase ledger, you want to see what's going on in stock control, stock levels. So really good if you're out and about and not always at your desk, but still want to have access to the data. Now, I say a good example of this is maybe if you are out and about doing sales, so sales order processing. We can raise sales orders. We can also raise quotes from within here. So again, really good if you are out seeing a potential customer and you need to give them a quote. So let's just pop in there and we can pop on a quote. So I am out at a customer, or it could be a prospective customer. So you've got all the same kind of functionality that you would get within Sage 200. I'll just choose a customer for now. So if I just pop in our retail, and we should get an alert coming through because we looked at supplier alerts, but it's already on the customer side. So whether this is going to be an alert you would have, not too sure, but the customer's a good friend of the boss. All righty, I'll keep that in mind for when I'm quoting them. And you're out with the customer wants to buy or wants to know the price of some extra items. That's absolutely fine. You've got all the same fields that you do in Sage 200, and then you can start to add your items. So this is just all coming from your Sage 200 stock list. Of course, you could put in a free text item in here if you wanted to. You could put in an additional charge. We'll just pop on our espresso machine. We'll say the customer wants to buy 10 of those. We'll come across, we'll say we want to sell from our nearest warehouse. So we'll just choose warehouse, can tab across, and then we can start to build our quote. So you can see here it's just taken from your pricing that you've got in Sage 200. Everything is just coming from your Sage 200 database. And what would then happen is I'm quite happy with that. I can save, and I can also print the quote from here, which is really good. So if I go save and print, we can put in some extra information if we wanted to put in a customer order number or anything. Then that should then come across and produce your, let me get rid of this, if I can just get it away from there, just pop that down, and we'll come back to our new quotation. Bring that down again, just so we get to zoom in the way. You can see here we have got the quotation. Now, of course, your quotes would probably look a whole lot nicer than that in terms of having your branding and things on. And if there's anything we can do around your layouts, more than happy to help with that. I've got a very bog standard quotation that I'm going to give the prospective customer, but it just means that we can get that out and about. So I'm doing it on the laptop just now, but you could do this on a tablet if you're out and about. And it just means that we've got access to Sage 200. I've not used the actual full Sage 200 module in any way. And if I just pop back in, again, apologies for the zoom in and out, and if I just go to our sales orders, can go to our list. And this will, what this will do is this will just take your sales order list that you've got in Sage 200, just take a wee minute to roll it through. And it will also update the quote back in Sage 200 in terms of your actual Sage 200 software as well. So if I look at our sales order list and just bring that through, just wait for these to load in. Apologies, it's taking a little longer than normal. Our sales orders, and then I'll just look at our quotes. And you can see here, there's quote 31. You just pop in there and have a look at it just to make sure it all marries up. And there's our 10 espresso machines. So everything that we do on the web app will translate through really, really quickly onto your Sage 200 desktop. So if someone else is then picking that up to convert to a sales order, or similarly, if it even was just a sales order, then that's absolutely fine. It will come through. And again, you can do that same thing here, where we can change. We can say, I just want to see quotes. So your lists again, all amendable within the web app. I just want to see your quotes, please. That will load through and here's your quotes there. And of course, you've got full access to do whatever you need to do here. So really, really good. I think it's a really good example of how the web app can be used. Of course, there's all the other information that you have. So, for example, if you want to look at your supplier list, you want to look at maybe some purchase inquiries, some transaction inquiries. Going on the customer route again, it might be a customer wants to see what they've done or what they've bought, or you want to see exactly what a transaction inquiry is like. So, for example, we just looked at, I think, Abbey Retail there. So we can choose Abbey Retail and we can quickly see what's going on with this customer in terms of their transactions or invoices. So you get real good access to lots of Sage 200 data without the need to actually be in the office, sitting on your machine and actually going through these things more manually. As I say, you can actually access these. You can actually access these without a full Sage 200 user license, which is probably the best thing about it. So if you do need any kind of quotations or anything for connected user licenses, or want to learn more about how you can set this up or what's available within here, we've probably just scratched the surface. We've got stock control where we can review. Again, just using that same example, when we want to see what we've got in stock, really good. So if you're a customer and you want to quickly know what I've got in stock, we use the blender there. So let's have a look at our blender. You can quickly see how much you've got in stock, how much is allocated, and how much is actually free. So if the customer asks me, I want 150 of these blenders, you can say, well, I've actually not got in stock, but then you could actually go and raise a purchase order. So if we look at our purchase order list, we can go through, create a new order. And again, you've got these new columns within here for the invoice and received. So you can really do quite a lot of that whole process without even touching Sage 200. So this is, as I said at the beginning, this is something that Sage have really added to over the last few years. I'm really committed to making better. Just gives that availability of Sage 200 for those who are maybe are not at the desk. And also really good if you're working at home. So a lot of people who are on the call today would probably set up remote desktop connections that allow you to access Sage 200 remotely. But this is a really nice way of doing that as well. Added to that, it's really good for those who are maybe not interested too much in the finance side. Now, we can define what a user sees, of course. The Sage 200, this version of Sage 200 probably looks less daunting, shall we say, for someone that's maybe just putting on orders or just wants to do some of the more kind of transactional things in Sage without actually having to go into the software and knowing how to kind of use the software. I'd say the web portal is a bit more intuitive in terms of showing people what's next and a bit more, and obviously being developed a bit more with the interface in mind. So really good additional feature that's been added and always getting added to as we go. So if anyone does have any questions about the web app or how it can be used, how it can be utilised, please do let your account manager know. I'm more than happy to show you any kind of demonstrations. Myself, happy to give you any kind of demos, and also talk you through how to get this set up. As I said before, there's probably some discussion we need to have with your kind of in-house IT or third-party IT just to make sure that everything's set up correctly for it. And as I say, some of the features within the web app are just available to those who are on a later version of the software. I think over the last kind of I'd say two or three, especially two or three versions, have been a lot more added to the website of the software, and it's certainly something that Sage will keep on adding to. Really gives that second arm for Sage 200 in terms of being able to access remotely. All right. So I see we have, and that's probably about it for today. Quite a short new features webinar this afternoon, looking at some of the newer features that have been added. So just to kind of recap what we went through this afternoon, I'll come back into Sage 200 and I'll get rid of this quote, I think he says, as he battles with the Zoom. So it's just coming there, and we'll just get rid of this quote. So we've looked at the new additions to the purchase order list view, one that's been asked for a long, long time by a lot of different customers. So we've looked at that. We've looked at some of the new imports that can go into stock control, really good for locations. So if we just recap where that is, it's under utilities, import and export, and you can see here we've got our new location import and export for adding locations and adding stock to those locations. Really good if you've opened a new warehouse and you need to update stock en masse. We've looked at the supplier alert, which we've seen twice. We've seen when we've got on a new order within the Sage 100 itself and within the web app. And we've also looked a wee bit more at that web app that's been really kind of enhanced over the last couple of years by Sage and will continue to be further enhanced. The underlying kind of message before we spoke about all the new features, of course, is the main thing, probably the main reason out with the new features that you've got access to is that being fully supported by Sage. It really does give you that peace of mind and gives us that peace of mind that if there are any issues, and again, touch wood, there would never be an issue, we would have to really escalate to Sage or go to Sage. It just means that you've got that peace of mind that anything that does happen to the software will be supported by not just ourselves, but also the creators of the software. As I say, it's quite rare we need to go to Sage with any issues, but it has happened previously. So we just want to make sure, and it's within our duty of care to make sure that the kind of risks of not being on a supported version of the software. So out with all the new features, that would be probably the main reason that you would might want to look to upgrade Sage 200. So with that, I think that's probably the end of the webinar this afternoon. As I say, if there is any questions at all, more than happy to answer them. And if you've got any questions that you maybe come up with after the webinar this afternoon, please do just send me an email. We've got the email below there for sales at eureka.solutions.co.uk. There will be someone on the call that have got my email, tom.mcintyre@eureka.solutions.co.uk. So please reach out to me directly if need be as well. And if there are any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. I see we've got a couple, at least one in the chat this afternoon. So if there are any questions, please ask away. And many thanks for your time this afternoon. I hope that has been beneficial. Say any questions at all, please do let your account manager or just let myself know. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much for everyone for joining, and I'll answer some questions now, I think.
Yes, so Tom, we got a question here. Can we see where a PO is part receipted and does it have a value to it?
So at the moment, let me just pop back into Sage. He says, so if we come back in here and we'll look at just on the list. So let me go through and we can probably just even list it through. So if we take this one, for example, we will become goods received. So on the list, I don't think it would give you a value, but if we just pop in a reference, or we say text for just now, the good old reference that we all use, and we'll receive some of that, we'll receive 15 of those, fine, and we can save that off. So we've still got quite a bit to receive on that order, and we are just producing the goods received notes. Hopefully this won't take too long. That should come through any second now. There we go. And if we just auto refresh, you can see there it's part received. Now, it won't give you any more information than that on the list view, but obviously if you went in and looked, so if we went into our purchase order and you wanted to see the actual values against that, then we would just show the quantities. You've got this wee dot here that shows the quantities. I suppose the list just gives you that first line saying this has been part received. then you can go into the order and see exactly what's still to be received. So it'll just be full part, and that's similar on the sales side as well, where something's maybe been part dispatched or part invoiced, and it would be the same if you went through and part invoiced, or you were part invoiced the purchase order for certain parts of that PO, then that would show in the list. So no values on the list. So I hope that answers that question for you.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Another question here. Does purchase ledger alert appear on add-on, so Cycon?
So I'll probably take that one offline for you. I'll double check with Cycon. It probably should do, but let me check that out for you. So I'll take a note, kind of who asked the question, and we'll get back to you just to make sure that's the case. Obviously we work really closely with Cycon and Racer, so we can ask that question for you. It would be good to know if you could pop in the chat what Cycon add-on you're using, just so we can come through, just so we can just confirm. It probably depends on what you're using. So if you could fire that into the chat, that would be perfect, and I can check that out for you. I think it should do if you're raising the PO. I'll just double check though. Of course, when you saw there on the when we're raising the supplier alert or when we're inputting the supplier alert, you've got the choice of screens. There's no add-on screens on there, but I can certainly find that out for you. No problem at all.
Thanks. Another question here. Is there any review of alerts for stock items? This is the one alert we would have liked from Sage 50, but it's not in Sage 100.
So not at the moment. I don't think it's standard unless I've missed anything. So we can just go in, but I don't think there's anything for the stock item itself. So if we just take why don't we just stay on brand and look at a blender, for example? Let's stay in here. Just around the details, we'll just make sure. I'm pretty sure you're not going to have an alert for the stock item itself. But if we just come in and just double check. Yeah, nothing out of the box, but it's certainly something that we could maybe look at for you. So happy to take that one offline and have a wee chat about it offline with yourself and or your account manager if it's someone that isn't myself, and we can see some of the possibilities you may have. So probably not a full no, but nothing that's out the box at the moment. Of course, you do have your memos for stock items that you can add against at stock item level, and any comments that you can add to the picking list and add to the dispatch note, but no alerts as of yet. So I can take that one offline and see what some of the options might be to get that added for you, or through maybe a third party add-on.
Yeah, that's great. That's all the questions we've got at the minute. Obviously, Tom and I will be here for another couple of minutes if anyone has any last minute questions they want to fire in.
Yeah, as Nathan says, if there's any questions that come up, and invariably in these things, questions may come up as you leave, or maybe when you're sitting doing something else, just pops into your head. So as I say, please do not hesitate to get in touch with your account manager or myself directly. More than happy to answer any questions that come up with a piece. I'll just pop on back the details just so you've got a note of those if you don't already. And once again, thank you very much for those who have joined us this afternoon. Hope you found it beneficial. And if there's any question at all, please do let us know. So thanks once again and have a lovely rest of the day.